Let's take another look at a Greek lesson here. Greek lesson, we'll call it 10A for convenience. I think I've got several different topics going on, but right now what we'll do is we'll focus on the present passive and middle indicative, and also a group of verbs called deponent verbs. Those deponent verbs have middle or passive forms, but active meanings. And so we'll be essentially tripling what we can do with verbs in this lesson. Don't worry, it won't be too difficult. Remember, the full classes are available at potterschool.org or at alts.edu, and I always have something going on over at Wittenberg Door Campus Ministry, wittenbergcomo.com. All right, well, in verbs, I just want to review the fact that we look at 5 different characteristics. Characteristic number 1 was tense, and right now we're in the present tense. Characteristic number 2 is voice, and so far what we've used is the active voice where the subject does the action. The third characteristic was mood. As you recall, that shows whether something is real or mandatory or potential or possible. It shows how closely related it is to reality. We've met person, which in general can be first person for I or we, second person for you, third person for he, she, it, or they, and we've met number, singular, one of somebody doing it, plural, more than one. Now, what we'll be adding today is the middle voice and the passive voice. In the middle voice, well, actually, let's look at the middle voice in a moment. Let's do the passive first, because we have that in English. In the passive voice, the subject receives the action of the verb. So for instance, in the active voice, I throw a baseball. I'm the subject, I do the action, throw, and there's a direct object that receives the action. In the passive voice, though, the subject receives the action. So let's change the subject to the baseball and make the baseball receive the action. The baseball is being thrown, or the baseball is thrown. And if we want to specify who's doing it, we might say something like, by me. So there's the passive. The subject of the sentence is receiving the action rather than the subject doing the action. To keep the same meaning, what we have to do is change who the subject is, because otherwise, in the active, I throw the baseball, the passive, the baseball throws me, or I am thrown by the baseball. You see, it'll change the meaning. But instead of I throw the baseball, we change the subject to be the old direct object, the baseball, and then we can make that subject, the baseball, receive the action, is thrown. Now the middle voice is, well, in between the active and the passive. We don't have such a thing in English, really. The subject does the action with some kind of reflexive connotations. So, in other words, I throw the baseball, and the reason I'm throwing the baseball is I'm at the fair and I want to win the prize for myself. I'm going to put that in the middle voice. I throw the baseball. I have some sort of special reason for wanting to throw the baseball. A more common version that we might have here, we can jump to another screen. By the way, the middle voice is relatively rare in Greek. What we might want to do is translate it as an active voice, but be aware of its reflexive nature. So in the active, I buy a sandwich, and in the middle, I buy a sandwich for me. I buy me a sandwich, they say in the South, in the United States. In the passive, a sandwich is bought. You see, we had to change who the subject was. So there's active, middle, and passive. Now, back to where we were, the present tense, as you recall, uses primary endings. And you've met the primary active endings. Remember those? O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. But there's another set of primary endings, and those are the primary middle or passive endings. And that's how you're going to tell the voice of those verbs. Let's take a look at it. In the present active indicative, over here, we see those endings, the primary active endings, o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. There, you remember those. But the primary middle or passive endings, omai, a, etai, ametha, estha, antai. And you see those are also used for the middle voice, omai, a, etai, ametha, estha, antai. So those are the primary middle or passive endings. You'll want to get to know them. Notice they just attach to the verb stem the same way the active endings would. Now, let's look again at how to translate. The middle voice in Greek is really pretty rare. You are not going to see it very often at all. It is not lurking under every bush waiting to jump out and scare you. But when you do see it, translate it as if it's an active voice, but be aware of its reflexive nature. Again, active voice, I buy a sandwich. Middle voice, I buy me a sandwich. You see, I have every intention of eating the sandwich. If you want a sandwich, you get to make it. All right, and the passive voice, a sandwich is bought by me or for me. There we go. Active, middle, and passive. Now, we have one more group of verbs that we want to meet here, and they are called deponent verbs. Deponent verbs are a little bit special. They only have middle or passive forms, but they have active meaning. And you can tell from a vocabulary list that they are deponent verbs because of their primary middle or passive ending, see the omai, and because of their active definition. Look at those examples. Ginomai, I become. That even has a little bit of reflexive idea to it. Some of them do, some of them don't. And erchomai, I come or I go. Again, they're going to have only middle or passive forms, but they'll have active meaning. So here again, middle or passive form, but instead of luamai, which means I am loosed or I am destroyed, that's passive meaning. But erchomai means I come or I go. You see, that's active meaning. So our primary active endings, o, ace, a, amen, ete, usi, and our primary middle or passive endings, omai, a, etai, ametha, estha, antai. Once you've mastered those endings, you've mastered half of the verb endings you're ever going to need. Happy Greek. We'll see you next time.